So that's physical safety, that's psychological safety. We've talked about dealing in the facts and stopping rumors in their tracks and speculation, no speculation. So you need to be reinforcing that behavior. You need to be walking the walk yourself, find branded sources of information, and making sure that your ship is still intact. Well, the third one is you need to plan. And you need to make the tough decision or tough decisions and act decisively. So there's a bunch of things within that. What I have seen during crises, and COVID-19 is absolutely no exception. In fact, I've seen it maybe a little bit more because this has been a very slow evolving event, and it's happening somewhere else, it's happening somewhere else, and then bam, it's happening here. So what I've really seen, more so than I've seen at other places, is analysis paralysis. And I totally understand that this is complex. Are we going to send people home? Will they be paid? All right, what about IT infrastructure? What about HR policies? What about all of these things? I totally understand that. These are tough decisions, but you have to make the decision. You are the leader. Make the decision. And if you are not the one making the decision, the big decision, make whatever decisions you can within your sphere of influence. Act decisively. Don't die of analysis paralysis. So the rule that I adopt during crises is the 80-20 rule. Get it to 80% and then execute on it. Then you act decisively, because you will never have ever 100% of the information. And if you have 100% of the information, I can promise you some of it's incorrect and it's going to change in 12 hours. So you have to get comfortable with making those tough decisions. You have to get comfortable with getting to 80% and realizing that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. But act decisively. You can always fix it, but lean in and make a freaking decision, because people are looking to you. They're looking to you to provide guidance and insight and stability and calm in this situation. If you're not going to give it to them, then where the heck are they going to be getting it from? Nowhere, right? So then to Facebook they go. Now, in terms of the plan, what does that look like? Well, you got to figure out who stays, who goes, right? Who's essential, who isn't quite as essential, who do you need to be more face-to-face present, who can work remotely from home. What does that look like in the short term? And I'm here to tell you also, this is a marathon, folks. This isn't like a wildfire where send people home right away and then in 7 days bring them all back. This could be protracted. It will be over the course of weeks, months, potentially. So think both short term, but also think long game. So maybe that means you send half of your workforce, half of your team home, and you keep the other half here for 2 weeks or a week, whatever the number is, and then you switch. So you go with an A team and a B team. And it's not an easy decision, but you're going to have to say, all right, you are on the A team. You're A, beat it. See you guys later. Head home, self-isolate, whatever that looks like, okay? But you have to be thinking longer term, because this will be a protracted event. And the other thing with your plan is figure out your trigger points as well. So what does that look like? And the trigger point is something that if this happens, then we will do that. So if this, then that. So maybe it's a really clear example is, let's say somebody is confirmed, right? It's a confirmed case of COVID-19. Well, that now is a trigger. So if this, so they've been positively, it's been confirmed, right? It's gone from possible to presumptive to confirmed. Well, then the trigger point is that, and then the action is everybody goes home or everyone gets tested or whatever that is, right? So that's a trigger point. So come up with a few of the triggers and have the conversations with your team around that. Have them involved if possible with those trigger points, because involvement equals commitment, right? If they're part of that process, wow, they are far more likely to agree with the trigger point. They're far more committed to it because they've had input into it. Plus, it provides a locus of control for them. Okay, and a locus of control is something that it's a psychological desire that we all have, the feeling to exert force on our environment, to take control over our circumstances, have input into what happens to us. That's what we call locus of control. And people lose that during crises. So if you're involving them in the conversation, like trigger points, okay, look, if this happens, what are we going to do? Oh, you know what, Daryl, let's do this. I think we can do that, so on and so forth. Well, then that will go a long ways to providing that psychological safety we talked about as well, because people will have control, at least the sense of control. And also trigger points are really good because you decide on them ahead of time. So it's unemotional. So going back to the example that I've been referring to, the wildfire. Wildfire had left the city and was heading north. And in our morning briefing, an individual was briefing us and saying, yeah, we expect the fire to make a run today. And so it came around and we determined pretty quickly that in the fire's way were 14,000 workers and camps and facilities. 14,000, pretty significant number. And so what we had to do is we had to determine a trigger point to figure out when they were going to evacuate. So when the fire gets to this point, and ideally a geographic location in our context, then we will do the trigger. We will pull the trigger and evacuate the 14,000 workers. So we determined that ahead of time. It was not emotional. We were able to think it through. We got to the 80%, said, man, it's not perfect, but it's 80% because we're never going to get to be 100%. And then once we had that trigger point, we communicated it out, and that'll be what we'll talk about next. And then guess what? The fire reached that road, that geographic location. There was no debate about it. The hard work, the planning, the discussion, the back and forth, the pros and cons, that had already been done. That had already been determined. So it was an easy push of the button when it came down to it. So part of your plan are those trigger points as well. Now, recognize too, I see this all the time, guilty myself, don't get married to one plan, right? Just because it was your plan and it was a good plan on Friday, doesn't mean that that same plan is good on Monday. Even though you made it, and I get nobody wants to make a bad plan, and people are, kind of are vested in that. I totally understand, but don't be married to it. Things change. Things change. Circumstances change. Times change. Policies change. Direction from government changes. The flow of, say, COVID-19 changes day to day. And so don't be married to a plan, and don't be so married to it because it's yours and you have this perception that, well, hold on, I don't want people to think that was a bad plan or that I don't know what I'm doing. No, people aren't stupid. They recognize that this is a fluid situation. Crisis by its very nature is chaotic and causes change. So the leaders that are really, really good, that lead and not just manage, they're the ones that are flexible with their plan, and they're not married to it. And they recognize that it's not about them. It's not about their ego. It's about what best serves the mission, what best serves the team, right? It's putting that team first. What provides a physical safety? What provides a psychological safety? And I'm here to tell you, folks, we have enough managers in this world. We really, really do. I love managers. We don't have enough leaders. And crisis is the ultimate textbook for leadership. And you have a real opportunity. It's a huge danger, but a real opportunity to show leadership and demonstrate what a leader looks like. And crisis lead and not crisis manage. So provide safety, deal in the facts, plan, and make a tough decision. The tough decision or decisions. Act decisively.